Howdy, I'm Matt, and in this video we are going to be taking a look at the new AR Stealth Flying Wing. Now, I found this wing by accident, literally this morning when I was trying to do some research on something else, and then I discovered this one, and I thought, you might want to know about this. So it's not even been released yet, and together we're going to be taking a quick look at the specs of this wing and taking a deeper insight. Now, also note, it has not been released. These details are very, very vague, but I do have some good news that apparently this model is supposed to be released on the 27th of July. Whether it is or not, I don't know. But anyway, let's go and take a look. So, as you can see off my screen right now, is that this wing looks slightly familiar. Those of you which have got maybe a Reptile S800, those of you which have also been around on this channel for a while, you'll know that I was one of the first to get one here in the United Kingdom. I was definitely the first one to get some FPV footage up onto YouTube. And also, you may also know that I did fly that into a tree at about 100 miles an hour and it did survive. So the Reptile S800 was a molded EPP model, and it was tough as old boots. I've seen that thing bounce around the floor so many times. I've hit too many trees than I'm going to go and admit to, and it still got up and begged for more. Right, so that brings us on to this stealth wing. Now, I've got a collection of photos up here on the screen, so let me just go and reset these a second, and we can have a little wander around. There's one in flight. Let me go and move around, and you can tell already. Let me just go back. It's got different nose cones. We'll get to that in just a moment. Let me just move on. I'm trying to find the main hold one. There we go. Okay, so the biggest amount of feedback, which I know, which I had, and I've seen from other pilots which have got the Reptile S800, is the battery bay was just too small. This one visually looks twice as big. Now, let me just check in on my notes here. It's got a larger fuse area for more battery, of course, maybe even a flight controller, perhaps iNav. So if you've not seen the iNav series, I'll put a link in the top right hand corner for you. That's for an inexpensive flight controller. But yeah, look at the size of that fuselage area. Absolutely huge. You'll be able to get a decent sized battery in there and room, plenty of room left over for the rest of your flight components as well. Now, look at my notes on here. So, yeah, it's basically an upgraded version of the S800. Now, a couple of things which I've noticed and I wanted to share with you. Well, number one, it's molded EPP. So if you look at that foam there, that is molded EPP, and that stuff is tough as old boots. It really is nice and strong. And what was the Traveller plane which we had here for a short while? That model was made out of molded black EPP foam, and it really was tough as old boots. Also, if you look closely, can you see there's a thumb screw here on the right hand side? It looks like what they've been and done for this model is try and keep it so it's all detachable, so you can take the wings off from the fuse, also the wing tips as well. We'll look at a schematic for the model in a few moments time, but it looks like everything's designed to be detachable, including the nose cone area where you can change over if you've got a run cam 3 or a session, or you've got a GoPro or a run cam 2. There is a collection of different mounts which can go on the front of the nose, and it looks like it's a nice combination between molded EPP foam and also plywood to give it the rigidity in the different places where it needs it. So let's move on. Oh, in fact, before we move on, let me just go to my notes on here. So it's got an extra 80 millimeters of wingspan. So the wingspan on this one, and again, these are the best details which I've got. I'm sharing it with you now to give you like the first look on this wing. It's going to be 90 centimeters or 900 millimeters. Now, those of you which are in the US, that's about 35.5 inches. So a decent sized wing, almost a straight 36 inch wing, a standard format, which I'm sure you've come across before in the past. Now, I do have a note here, and I'm looking. I've written down some notes before I hit record, which is the wing cord looks twice as thick as the S800. Now, why is that a curiosity? Let me just zoom out a moment, see if I can scoot through some of the there. Right, let me just zoom in there. So the wing cord, let me move that over at the side. The wing cord, like the thickness of the cord itself, looks to be about twice as thick as the S800. Now, why would be a bigger wingspan and a deeper cord be of interest to you as a pilot? in short, what I would probably phrase the S800 as being like almost an FPV racer, you know? It's something you can muck around with. It's more of like a sport wing. Whereas a model like this with a larger wingspan and a thicker cord, obviously comparing it directly to the Reptile S800, is going to be a lot floatier. Okay, so it's going to be an FPV cruiser rather than a sporty model. So that does mean that this one, well, bigger battery bay, thicker wing cord, it's going to be a floatier model, more room for a flight controller, does reek an FPV cruiser, something which you can just grab by the wingtip, chuck up into the sky. And again, the S800, I was getting 15 to 20 minutes worth of flight time out of it. This one, and we'll get to a note around the propeller, well, might as well cover it now, is that there seems to be a decent amount of prop clearance at the back of this model. So you could fit a bigger, a lower KV motor on the back, a bigger propeller. Now, I have no idea on what the maximum size propeller you can stick on this model. I would guess around about 8 inches, maybe 9 inches on the back. Again, I don't know. I don't have one. You're working with me with the photos on here. But it does look, and again, let me just scoot through some of these photos, is that look at the prop clearance there, is that it does look like we'll be able to get a bigger propeller on there. That means potentially a lower KV motor, less amps, so more time in the sky. So it's not really going to be a particularly fast model, but those of you which want a longer, more endurable flight, well, depends on what you class as enjoyment, a longer flight time, with your FPV models, this one could be a good challenger. Now, what else have I got here on my notes? The extra wingspan is only added an extra 20 grams for the model weight compared to the Reptile S800. Again, I'm just working off details which I found around the internet. Remember, I did find this model purely by accident. I was trying to research the Nano Talon, which has just been released, to find out who made it, which, by the way, is Sonic Model. And this model is also made by Sonic Model. And like I said, completely found it by accident. And I thought it's worthy of a video to share with you, to give you the first look. Now, there was a note here. We've got no holes in the wings for the receiver and the VTX. So those of you which have seen or maybe own a Reptile S800, you'll know that underneath the wings on either side, you've got those two holes where you can put your receiver on one wing and the video transmitter on the other wing. Now, this one does not have that, and I've perfect timing for getting the wing shot on there. But what you will see is that there is this mount section here. So they say there's minimal gluing, which I'm guessing is just this plate here where you put the spar holes in and then you can fix your servos in. So it looks like as far as those of you which hate gluing, this one has minimal gluing because you've only got two pads either side of the wing which require gluing. From a personal point of view, I feel that's fantastic because it was great that the S800 had two holes underneath the wings to put the receiver and the VTX in, but the VTX rattled around loads and it was bottom mounted, so it kept the VTX lovely and warm, which is not ideal. And also the receiver bay was just too small to put even a D4R2 receiver in it. Whereas a model like this, because it's fresh foam, it does mean that I or you will be able to run the wires for your receiver out to one wing and also run your wires out for your video transmitter to the opposite wing with minimal hassle because half the hole's already been cut for you. And also that means that you'll be able to bottom mount or top mount as you desire for your VTX and your receiver as well. So I kind of like that. I prefer models which don't have like pre-made places. But that said, those of you which don't really care about any form of distance at all, is that in the main view section, you saw them out of space in there. Let me see if I can find that photo. There we go. Look at the size of the hole in there, and you'll be able to just chuck everything in the middle, basically, and you'll be all right. You know, if you're not going to be flying massively far, then just chuck it in the middle and off you go. But for me, I already know what I'm going to be doing on mine. Video transmitter out on the wing, and it's pretty much as far as I can take it, and the receiver out on the opposite wing. Again, maximum separation of the components, and then just run the wiring back into the middle, and yeah, kind of looking forward to it. What else have I got here in the notes in here? Yeah, I've already mentioned molded EPP. We know that stuff is tough as old boots. The S800, which was the same material, literally stuffed it into a tree at a ton, and a bit of tape, a bit of glue, and it carried on flying. So molded EPP, really tough stuff. One thing which you will, again, practical point of view, is that you will need to look out for like a very silky finish to the foam itself. Anywhere which needs to be glued, you'll need to sand those surfaces because glue doesn't stick very good with mold release. So you can imagine the foam getting injected into the mold and then expanding. They spray the mold with mold release, which makes popping out the wing parts a lot easier for them in the factory. You'll need to keep an eye out for that. So anywhere which you're gluing, make sure you sand and then apply glue. Don't just put glue straight on, because chances are that will result in a very weak joint. So sand first is my point there. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, ability to separate the wings by design using thumb screws, and it also looks like the wingtips. So on the Reptile S800, the wingtips came up and they were glued on. In this instance, the wingtips go top and bottom, so potentially better yaw stability with the model itself. And it also looks like there's some thumb screws as well. Now, I did have a schematic drawing here somewhere. That's not the one which I'm after. That is the one which I'm after. And let me just move around. So it does look like there's a couple of screws on the wingtips, like I just mentioned a few moments ago. The bottoms we can see just here, looks like they're glued on underneath, and it's a single main spar which goes near the rear of the actual model itself, and hopefully the main body section comes as one piece. If it doesn't look like there's a massive amount of gluing to be done, should I say, top and bottom, and maybe the bits underneath. The rest of it looks like screws. And a nice little balsa, let me just zoom right in there, not balsa, plywood frame to hold your camera in place. Now, there was an oddity as well, which is about the FPV camera placement. I'm sure those of you which have gone, Matt, what about this FPV camera? It's right out on the side. And there, let me just zoom in there. And you're absolutely right, the FPV camera is on the right wing. So what is the purpose of this model? Video recording. As you can see in this photograph here, is that what we've got is a Runcam 3 or GoPro session up in the nose, and the FPV part is like a secondary feature to this. So the idea of this wing is to get some fantastic footage. Now that does going to cause you one or two issues, and which is there's a better photograph there. Let me just zoom in there. So as you can see, the FPV camera is on the right wing, looking from behind. That does pose one slight issue. If you are going to use this as a bashing wing, in other words, a wing to chuck in and around trees, then you're going to want to fly slightly to the right of the model, because instead of punching gaps between trees, you are going to be punching trees. So that is one thing just to be aware of. That was one oddity which I've noticed. Now, what else have I got on my notes in here? There are 3 different nose cones which looks like come as part of the kit. Let me just fast forward a moment. So that looks like a GoPro or a Runcam 2. That looks like a GoPro. That one there, you could either put your FPV camera straight in the middle of the nose and not use that little bay on the right-hand side. Or you could put a Runcam 2 in there, and of course you've got the session stroke Runcam 3 mounting point in the middle as well, and by the looks of it, it looks like you just slot the camera in behind and job's a good one. And my last note which I had in here, the camera being mounted out on the side of the wing, to be honest, it's not going to be any huge biggie. Those of you which are slightly more experienced FPV pilots, you're not going to really notice it. You just know to fly to the right hand side a little bit by an inch or two if you do go through some trees. Those of you which are going to be using this model as an FPV cruiser, so you're just going to use it just to really enjoy the FPV experience, then you're not going to notice it. As long as you can see where you're going and it's roughly in the middle of the model, which it is, then it's going to be fine. It's not like it's right out on the wingtip. So pretty damn cool by the looks of it, is my honest answer from what I've seen so far. Now, right, let's summarize now, because I do realize I've been chatting for 10 minutes or so. Right, it's got a larger wingspan, 90 centimeter or 35.5 inch wingspan, so it's bigger than the S800. It's got a thicker cord, so it's not going to be as fast. but it will be a floatier model. And again, if you combine that with the larger battery bay, which we saw, in fact, let me just see if I can scroll through those images so we can take a look at the battery bay, which we've got on here. There we go. Just look at the size of that battery bay. You're going to be able to fit a decent sized battery in there. That is definitely a positive over the S800. And also, to summarize, it's not going to be an FPV racer. It's going to be an FPV cruiser. So those of you which want to chill out and enjoy the FPV experience, or those of you which want some fantastic video footage, again, this one, by the looks of it, is designed with the HD camera as being the primary focus at the very front of the camera, so that you can get some really close-up flight footage. Maybe you're following your mates around in the sky. And of course, by the way, what you could also just think an ad hoc here, and I didn't put it in my notes, is that center block where you've just got the single hole in the middle. Those of you which are maybe using the run cam split, for example, is that you can make that in the center section and forego the camera mount on the wing. Now, when it comes to price, now, you don't shoot the messenger on this one. As far as I can tell, it's going to be sub 100 USD. Okay, the kit price is definitely way below that. The plug and play version is going to be below that as well. As far as I can tell, like I said, I found this purely by accident. Found a different few sites with this model on, and again, they're all shown as pre-order, and it hasn't even hit like the Chinesium sites like Banggood or GearBest yet. So we've got no idea where it's going to turn up there, and again, we don't even know if it's going to turn up on Hobby King or not either. But as far as I can tell, it is going to be sub $100. And also, if you think about what happens with the S800 Reptile wing as well, it came in at a price point about here. Then it just got massive popularity, and the price has just come down over time. Not massive amounts, but the price has come down. And if we take the S800 as any point of reference here, which is very, very familiar, but it's got a lot of good points going for it compared to the S800, is that I foresee the same thing. And that's why this morning when I found this model, I was like, right, let's get as many photos as I can and share as much as what I know about this wing with you as early as I can. But do keep in the back of your mind, the release date for this model is not until the 27th of July. And of course, whether that happens or not, I have no idea. It's made by a company called Sonic Model. And this is the first, literally, this is the first details which I've been able to find out about this model. And there's very, very few details on YouTube. Hence why I wanted to make this video for you to share what I know so far. And the last one is really just to ask you a question. What do you think of the AR Stealth Wing? Will you be getting one? Did you own an S800? Were you frustrated about the lack of battery space in there, the squash to get a flight controller in there? Is this a wing which perks your interest? If it is, let me know in the comment section underneath this video. Now, when this model does get released, I'll put a couple of links in the video description for you, so you can go and buy one if you want to. And I'll also put links to the other sites which I've been found this model on as well, so that you can go and take a look yourself. So on that note, from myself, Matt, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. I'm kind of excited about this one. The S800, my big frustration for that wing was the lack of battery space. This one looks like we're going to be able to fit a decent sized battery in it. Just like the S800, we'll be able to get a dedicated HD camera in the front, but not in such a vulnerable spot. I know that sounds a bit daft, but I did manage to knock out this Turnigy 2K camera out of my model a few times, and I've completely mullered the nose. With this nose area, there is a little bit more depth on the front of it to slightly protect it. And again, the FPV camera on the side, a bit of a quirk, but again, if the camera's focus, the HD camera is the main focus on this wing, along with extended flight times because of the thicker cord, larger battery space, you're not going to notice it being like an inch or two out away from the center of the model. You're only ever going to get caught out if you're punching holes in trees. So let me know what you think. You can do that in the comment section underneath this video. And from myself, Matt, cheerios.